About 2 hours west of Calgary, deep into the foothills, but not in the mountains. Driving home from hiking trip with buddies. Me, 2 guys, and 2 other girls. About 1 a.m. Car makes an unpleasant sound. That clutch burning smell though. Poor old Subaru gets sluggish going up a hill, and then cuts out just at the top. Put the brake on. We just sit in the car planning on how to get home. We all just sit and chat while waiting for our ride. They're about 2 hours away. It actually became pretty relaxing. We were all tired and had a great day, and we just sat in the car debriefing, spending some quality time. Half-hour later, or 1.5 hours left on the stranded clock, a rusty red pickup pulls over behind us. That feel when I'm pretty afraid of Hicks. They walk up to our window, see if we need help or anything. One of them is clearly hammered, but I don't think he was a driver. Blah blah hiking trip, blah blah clutch, blah blah, tell them the story so far. The drunk one stumbles about the whole time, so it was very noticeable when he suddenly stopped. In the light from my car's interior, I could see him dumbstruck, pupils fully dilated, staring into the ditch. After a few seconds of silence, we all look around to figure out what he's staring at. Atmosphere becomes tense. Everyone starts freaking out a bit. Police cars snuck up on us. Suddenly, police sirens. A police car snuck up on us, scared the shit out of everyone with the siren. 2 RCMP dudes get out, sweating buckets, and in full battle regalia. One of them pants something unintelligible. The other remains composed, asks the standard, "Is there a problem here? Have any of you been drinking?" and etc. I ask why Cop 1 is freaking out. He thinks he saw something. I explain how Drunky McRedneck saw something too. Cop 2 flinches, almost reaches for his gun. Super serious. Where was it? It? I ask what's going on. Cop 2 leans in and whispers, trying not to scare anyone. We believe someone armed and dangerous has made their way out here. Cop 2 half whispering. What I'm gonna do is send these other guys on their way, but since you're stuck, it's best if the constable and I stay here until your ride arrives. Cop 2 announcing. Alright, you good old boys can make your way home. The constable and I are gonna stay with you campers until your ride is here. No telling what you might run into this late at night. Cop 1 is silent, peering into the trees, hand near something on his belt. Cop 2 trying to keep control of the situation, but Cop 1 is kinda freaking everyone out. Stranded clock, 1 hour and 15 minutes remaining. Cops take a sidebar, hushed in frantic whispers. My friends and I are all silent. Everyone but, let's call her Kate, is more confused than scared. Kate is just plain fucking scared. And Nanette, we have to go now. We have to leave. Dude, calm down. We're not going anywhere without a working vehicle. We'll just wait for, friend with van, to get here. Mob psychology? Kate's starting to freak everyone out. Let's call him Robbie. Robbie? I'm starting to get a little freaked out. Me. Shut up. Cop 2 is back, taps on window. Holy fuck, jump scare. Everyone screams a little. Cop 2 suddenly seeming a little afraid. Listen, I don't want anyone to freak out, but something's come up. Stay in the vehicle and keep your windows up. It is very important that you stay put. No one leaves the car until I say so. You're about to see a lot more police officers show up. Don't be alarmed over it. Or, don't get more alarmed. His radio cuts in. Unit 3! By the creek! It's got... Help! Send help! We're all silent for a second, as the walkie-talkie cuts out. More cops are just showing up, asking questions like, It's near here, right? What just happened by the creek? Pained screams become audible, louder, closer, and more frantic by the second. After 1.5 minutes of the most palpable tension I've ever experienced, of Kate and, let's call her Anne, sobbing in the back, and 6 cops frantically radioing, the screams are very near us. A cop darts out of the trees, screaming at the top of his lungs. It took him! It took him! The cop whips out his gun, and as he clambers behind a cop car, starts shooting into the trees. The guns are out, pistols, shotguns, rifles, everything. Sounds like the battle of Vimy Ridge out here. All screaming and incessant gunshots. The cops are in full panic mode, wasting ammo like something you don't even see in the movies. Something wails horribly, louder than the gunshots. Here, I hit the fucker, muffled by the sounds of gunpowder. They stop after a few more seconds. Everyone in the car slowly starts to unduck, but Cop 2 yells, "Stay down!" Another horrible wail. All of the cops are silent. I hear a few weapons hit the ground. I look up. All of the cops are gawking at something in the air over the ditch, illuminated in the searchlight. It's long, thin, and wrinkly. It's human-shaped, but with no clothing, no facial features, and no genitals. Just tough, wrinkly skin, covered in infections and pustules, draped over a big, vaguely human-shaped frame. And it's just floating there, just levitating, about 20 feet off the ground, almost doing that ballerina pose that Superman does when he floats. It had no eyes, but I could feel it staring. I woman out, start sobbing quietly. I can feel it focusing on me. Bang. One last shot, and it wails some more, and flies away. It was another 45 minutes before our ride showed up. We were all huddled down in my car the entire time. The cops didn't seem afraid anymore. They seemed dejected, like they failed. They all stood around silently, looking down into their thermoses as they stripped off their body armor and drove off, one car at a time. When our ride showed up, one last car was sitting there behind us. Cops 1 and 2 from before got out and talked to friend with van before letting him see us. Those guys looked pretty scared. They told me not to ask you what happened. If something's scaring the heavily armed dude that much, maybe I won't ask. And that was the end of it. We rode home in silence, almost afraid to make eye contact, as if the slightest communication would make what just happened even more real. We still do go hiking sometimes, but we never talk about that, and we never wait too long to hit the road. Something came into my town during the storm yesterday. Hey guys, I don't normally post here except to poke fun at people and bump interesting threads. But something happened to me yesterday that, well, I need to talk about. Be me, living with folks in town near Chicago. Not a complete NEET, yet. Do contract work as a network technician while studying at the local college. Mom works for a small telephone and internet company as a secretary. Small as in like 4 people. I know the owner pretty well. He'll often hire me for jobs. He's a nice guy. Get a call on Tuesday. They're moving to a different office nearby and need some networking gear organized and put into a new storage unit tomorrow. It's paid and I have nothing better to do since chickenpox is taking all my work away. So I agree. Next day, it's raining. Get a call and boss man suggests that I wait for it to let up so the boxes don't get soaked. Wait a while. Rain lets up a bit, so I head out. Get there and start loading boxes into my mom's Ford, since it's bigger than my car, and take them to storage unit and get them nice and organized. Storage complex is between highway and about an acre of forested area. I worked at UPS for 2 years. This is nothing. Make a few runs. Unit is looking nice. While partway through with my third, the rain picks up like crazy. It had been raining all day, and we'd been getting flooded. But this was really heavy. Can't get my boxes from my car to the unit in this rain. So I get comfy inside the unit, put on some jazz, don't judge me, and start working on fixing a MacBook for another client. Work for about 2 hours while I wait for the rain to clear up. It's cozy, but it just keeps getting worse. It's not very cold though, and only about 3 in the afternoon, so I'm fine hanging out. I finished with the Mac a while ago, and am now just chilling. Then, I start hearing smashing from nearby. Sounds like something hitting metal. Is it a car crash on the nearby highway? No, it's coming from the other direction. I really don't want to go out and get wet. Whatever, some asshole probably just dropped something. This is a public area like 200 feet from a busy highway. It's raining, but it's still in the middle of the day. And I even saw other people earlier. So I have zero fear. Keep working, keep hearing various banging noises. I'm going to feel like a real cunt if I find out tomorrow that someone was hurt out there and I didn't bother checking. Fucking fine. I'll go check. Rain has let up a bit, but it is still pouring. Head out, round corner looking for noise. Notice massive hole in the fence leading to the little forest area. See something white moving near a dumpster by a fence. I should be wearing glasses, but I lost them a month ago, and I haven't bought new ones because poor. Zoomed enhance dot squint. Spend 1/100th of a second thinking, is that a big garbage bag under the dumpster? That's not a garbage bag. Garbage bags don't have arms. And they don't click either. Now let me make something clear. I've read Skinwalker and In a Wood stories on here for a long time, and I know all of the tropes. This had none of them. It was the middle of the day, and I'm not in some deep forest or ancient tunnel or abandoned farmhouse. I'm in the middle of a small town, and can hear traffic on the highway just 300 feet away. I didn't smell any rotting blood or stop hearing the wind or anything. I didn't even feel a sense of unease or nervousness at all. This was not a setting that I expected horror in. Still not convinced I'm in danger, just confused. Try and get a closer look at the thing, maybe 150 feet away from it. Can see what looks like the big bag of skin under there, but there's these massive white spikes poking out from under it. Keep hearing clicking noises. Hello? Who's that? Immediately regret making yelling out. Why would I do that? This is the kind of thing I get mad at people in other green texts for doing. Typewriter garbage bag thing must have heard me. Something big squeezes out from underneath the dumpster. Massive pile of skin and spiky bits, at least 4 feet tall. It stands up. It is now taller than me, at least 6'5". It looks like if you took a spider, reversed its body, made it pale white, and slapped big pointy arms on it. It has a pointy and angular body, kind of like a crayfish or spider, but clearly fleshy instead of hard, except for the tips of its arms and legs. The face is smooth and flat, except for a slit on each side of its head, and a recession at the bottom full of little moving things. I didn't get a good look. I think they looked like a crayfish mouthparts. Even from where I am, I can tell it's covered in tons of scratches and bruises. The creature is clearly not happy. It doesn't seem to mind the rain, but every time there's thunder, it flinches hard. Also seems to be spitting up a large amount of water out of its mouth. Imagine it in the corner seen in the picture. You can kind of see where the torn fence is, but the dumpster was moved. I can hear it fucking clicking louder now. Not like a bat or a dolphin though. It sounded more like a typewriter or someone flicking a lighter. Start freaking out internally. This is not possible. I live in a decently sized city. There's no forests or swamps or deserts for whatever this is to hide in. The forest nearby is like an acre wide. You would be able to see through it if not for the little hill in the middle. It doesn't give a shit if it's possible. It's moving towards me. Thankfully, it doesn't seem very fast. Quickly think. I don't know what this is, I have no weapons, and my car is 100 feet away around the corner. I don't know how fast or dangerous this thing is either. Start slowly backing away, too scared to let it out of my sight. Yelling progressively louder, hoping someone will hear me. Hello? Hello, help! Anyone help, please! It starts moving faster, clicking more rapidly. It moved kind of like a crab with the 6, I think, legs at the bottom, moving it around while the 2 arms were raised up like claws. Try to move faster to get away, but I'm still too terrified to turn away from it. End up awkwardly backwards running into a concrete bollard and fucking up my back. It's moving really quick now. It's about 20 feet away from me. Absolutely terrified. But I grab a loose piece of asphalt and get ready to try and smash it into weird mouth parts. Suddenly, a loud truck horn on the highway nearby. It starts flinching again. Take my chance to cower it out. Throw a rock at its head. I miss and haul ass away. Eventually, reach the row of storage units my car is in. Get in, start the engine, and peel the fuck out. Get to storage complex. No time for codes. Instead, I do something incredibly stupid. I hop out of my car, scale the fence, and start running across the busy highway into a fucking graveyard. So, this is where most of the excitement ends. Instead of turning into another green text, the graveyard was fine. I ran to the nearby church. A little office lady let me in and let me use her phone to call the police. Obviously, I didn't tell them that I saw a fucking skin spider monster, but that someone with a gun needs to get in there ASAP. Tell them I saw a shifty-looking man waving a pistol around at the self-storage center. I waited at the chapel for one to arrive, and I thanked the old lady. The cop asked me some questions, and I just gave vague answers. I didn't need to lie about fucking up my back by backing into a concrete bollard, though. Apparently, cops found nothing there. There was another guy in the storage area at the time who heard me scream, but wasn't able to find me before I ran out of there. I'm not an artist, but I tried to draw what I saw. Sorry for the low quality. Alright, X. I have a story for you. I've never told this to anyone before, and today, in the hope of getting some answers, I decided to post this on X. Be around 2 years ago. Be me, your everyday German friend. Had a group of friends from childhood. Let's call them rich friend, a really rich kid whose dad got into the steel business and made it big. Black friend, a white kid who really wanted to be black, but was still fun to hang out with. And nerd friend. The title is self-explanatory. As kids, we all had one common interest. Fucking Scooby-Doo. So when we all got older, we were seriously into haunted houses. Since we lived in Germany, Berlin at that, we had plenty of abandoned World War II places, battlefield sites, and a shitload of haunted legends. We all practically grew up getting the shit scared out of us. So after we graduated from high school, Rich Friend invites us on a trip around Europe. None of us are as rich as him, so he practically finances the whole trip. To be honest, none of us wanted to take a handout, but we're all as close as family, so we said thanks and went with it. We went to Amsterdam first. We saw tons of haunted places. One particularly memorable one was our trip to Birdsley Castle. The place was a fucking joke. Remember, we grew up sneaking into abandoned World War II bases, so nothing practically scared us. After a bunch of visits to different cities, we decided to go to Prague. Czechoslovakia is pretty famous for its hauntings, but to be honest, we didn't really see anything special. In the end, Black Friend, who spoke Slavic, told us about this really haunted place, Huska Castle, Auska Castle. Since we had nothing to do till we were set to go to Kiev, we decided why not. The place, for those of you who don't know, is surrounded by a huge-ass forest, so Nerd Friend suggested that we camp out there. We were all really into the prospect, so Rich Friend got us some camping supplies, and we were on our way. But it turned out that the castle was apparently blocked off by the government, and being the idiots that we were, we decided to sneak in at night. After sneaking in, we thought of immediately going to the castle, but we decided to march on deeper into the forest to make sure any patrols didn't catch the smoke from the campfire. I remember that after an hour or two, we came across a big-ass gate. Literally, one of those old fancy ones that was just lying in the middle of the forest. It looked old, and it definitely wasn't iron because it would have rusted. We took a bunch of pictures and decided to move on. Now here's where it starts to get weird, because as we kept moving on, we kept hearing noises. At first, it was just the wind rattling the bushes and the sounds of the leaves. We had been doing this nearly our entire lives, so this didn't even scare us. Then, the wind starts blowing really bad, and Nerd Friend suggests that we ought to set up camp. We all listen and do our best to set up camp while the wind is fucking everything over. Then, all of a sudden, it stops. Literally, all noise just stops. Still not freaked out, but noticeably alert. Rich Friend pulls out his gun. I don't know how he has one. And Nerd Friend pulls out a book and some salt. Yeah, we had these contingency plans just in case. Black Friend, easily the most fearless of us, decided that we need to take advantage of the wind and set up camp. Forget everything, and we all help him. Eventually, have everything set up, and we all decide to retire for the night. I had some shit-tier nightmares that night. I can't remember what they were, but holy shit did I wake up covered in sweat. Wake up, get dressed, and get outside. Everyone, excluding Black Friend, looks like shit. Rich Friend pulls out his GPS and tries to find the castle. Then, the worst possible thing happens. The GPS is not working. We all panic and reach for our cell phones. Dead. That's not fucking possible. We charged them before coming up here. We're all pretty alarmed. We're not scared of too spooky for me ghosts, but survival in the wild? We all decide to pack up and try and retrace our steps. While doing this, we end up more lost than when we started. Panic is beginning to set in when we hear something loud behind us. All of us are on edge, so Rich Friend whips around, holding his gun, and shouts, "Come on out!" At his command, a guy comes out of the forest, surprising us all. He's holding his hands up, but he looks majorly annoyed. He looks at us all pretty angrily and asks us, "What are you people doing here?" The way he said, "you people," was pretty weird thinking back on it. Also, to describe him, he looked weird. He looked around 6'1", had white skin, and was wearing the weirdest clothes ever. He was wearing a bloody cloak. The weirdest thing was that he had a perfect face. Like the kind you see in magazines, literally perfect. Not a single acne mark or flaw. He didn't even look human. The guy looked pretty mad. Black Friend, who by the way was not just a wannabe black guy in appearance, took offense to this. Now, a little backstory here. Black Friend was a wannabe alpha. He got beat up a lot because he didn't know when to shut up. So he started learning some martial arts or something, I can't remember, and he eventually became the toughest motherfucker around. And this made his attitude worse, because now he could back up his threats. Black Friend goes up to this guy and is nose to nose with him and calls him a bitch and asks him what the hell he's doing here. Cloaked Friend looks annoyed now. Just before a fight can start, Rich Friend puts on his ass-kissing face and gets between them. He settles the situation and asks him who he is. The guy doesn't respond but looks much less annoyed. Tells us that we should really leave. We're a bit relieved and ask him how to get out of here. At this, he nearly jumps back. "You mean you don't know how to get back?" We all tell him that we're lost. He looks completely paranoid now. We all ask him what's wrong with him. The guy's face shifts back to what it was before, and he tells us that we should do our best to find our way out. We're all confused as fuck, and Black Friend, who seems more pissy than usual, tells us that he doesn't like the guy. When we ask him why, he just says, "You know, man, just something wrong with him." He starts to leave the way he came. The guy is seriously fast. Weirdest thing was, he wasn't even running. He was just gone. We chase after the guy, asking for help, but he's already gone. Eventually, we decide to screw it and go back to trying to get out of the stupid-ass forest. As the sun goes down, we decide to set up camp again. But we're out of butane, so we can't build a fire. When nighttime comes, things get weird. We're all trying to sleep, but we all keep hearing sounds and noises from the forest. They sounded odd, like the sounds of a fight or something. Lots of grunting and shouting, and weird shouting, not the human kind. The wind is seriously stirring, but the trees don't seem to be moving much. Black Friend convinces us to go investigate. For the first time, we're a bit cautious, but we grab the gun, a torch, and some other shit, and head towards the noises. As we head towards the noise, we start feeling really creeped out. And trust me, we haven't felt this kind of feeling since we were 12. Nerd Friend seems to be getting the worst of it. He's clutching his Quran and reciting the Durad Sharif. As we get closer, the air seems to be ice cold, something that definitely shouldn't be happening in June. And then, when we get to where the noises were coming from, there's nothing. Just an empty clearing. We're all relieved that the noises are gone, but then a shiver goes up our spine, and we all turn around. No, seriously, we turned around like some synchronized dance move in a Bollywood film. Just as we move, something quickly darts out of our vision. Rich Friend, in his eternal wisdom, whips out his gun and fires 3 rounds. That breaks the spell, and we all ask him, what the fuck? He tells us that he saw something white, and on all fours, moving way too fast. We all say we should move back to the campsite and sleep. Even Black Friend agrees. One issue though. We couldn't find the campsite. Okay, time to panic.jpg. This was not fucking possible. We made sure to walk in a straight line and keep track. Everyone is blaming each other, but something was wrong, guys. We were honest to God bros. We never did this before. And one time we even got trapped in an abandoned World War II base. I didn't feel right. Still, I managed to bring everyone under control, and we managed to find a clearing where we can at least rest. Now we're picking watches. I get first watch, and so on. But Rich Friend seemed oddly angry to part with his gun. As I took the first watch, I couldn't help but look up. There was barely any moon, but the amount that there was seemed to be completely blocked out by the forest. Another weird thing was that the trees seemed to be curving inwards, like they were trying to contain us or something. When my watch came to an end, I woke up Nerd Friend and handed him the gun. I fell asleep pretty easily considering the circumstances. I had more nightmares that night, but nothing compared to being woken up by Black Friend's screams. I wake up and Black Friend is ranting. I ask Rich Friend, who looks pissed, what's going on. He tells me that Nerd Friend never woke him up for his watch. He was gone. We couldn't find Nerd Friend. We did, however, find the gun empty. We're all pretty angry / worried / creeped out. We looked for Nerd Friend, but it looked like he just vanished. No footprints, nothing. We're pretty sure that he took the bullets for some reason, because the sound of a gunshot would have woken us all up. While we're calling for him, we find another stranger. This time, it's a chick. And I'll be damned if it isn't the hottest girl we've ever seen. Literally flawless face, and is wearing a cloak very similar to the one we saw on the guy earlier. She seems to be pretty pissed at us for being here in general. When we explain that we're lost, her face becomes white. She doesn't reply after that, and asks us, and I shit you not, "Has one of you gone missing?" We're all alarmed by that. Black Friend, Nerd Friend's best friend, is about to kick her ass. He starts screaming at her and asks her what she knows about Nerd Friend. We try to calm him down, but he rushes at her, intent on kicking her ass. And then, the weirdest thing happens. The girl doesn't even react, but somehow catches Black Friend's punch and kicks him straight in the nuts so hard, we hear something snap. That should not have been possible. Black Friend is buff and fast as fuck. No person should have been able to catch his punch. It's at that moment that I think we're not dealing with a person after all. She looks a bit pissed but just walks off while we tend to Black Friend. Rich Friend chases after her but comes back without a clue to where she went. Then, while we're still looking for a Nerd Friend, we find our old camp. And guess who's just sitting opposite the remains of the fire? Fucking Nerd Friend. When he stands up so we can see him, he has this weird full face smile on his face. First thing we feel is relief that he's fine. The second is anger. We're all pissed at him for walking off, but he apologized profusely, saying he had to use the facilities. We're pretty sure he meant toilet, and then he found the camp. When we ask him about the ammo and the gun, he's surprised, and for the first time, that creepy smile drops. He tells us he doesn't know what we're talking about, and we agree, after a heated conversation, to drop it. We start making plans on how to get out, when Nerd Friend starts giggling. It starts as a chuckle, but then becomes a full-blown laugh. We're all a bit creeped out, and Black Friend, fearless motherfucker he is, asks Nerd Friend what's wrong with him. He just says that he was in remembrance. We're a bit confused, but Nerd Friend has always been a bit weird. We don't want to leave the camp, so when night falls, we just stay here. Later that night, Rich Friend and Black Friend wake me up. They're saying that something's wrong with Nerd Friend, and we need to go out and check what's going on. I suspected it too, so after a conversation on what to do, we decide to go outside and look around the camp area. But we'll keep track this time to avoid getting lost. We all head out and make sure not to disturb Nerd Friend and his tent. As we head out, the air gets chilly again, and it's literally freezing cold, like we could see our breath cold. and then it hits us. It's a smell. A smell that Black Friend tells us he recognizes as the son of a butcher. The smell of dead meat. We follow Black Friend and his super sniffer nose. What we find nearly kills us. It's Nerd Friend, although the body looks like it was torn apart. What even worse is that, I'm sorry, but this is difficult for me to write. He was my bro, you know? His body is infested with maggots. It looks like it's been dead for ages. His copy of the Quran is, however, placed upon a tree stump that is next to him. We did what anyone would do. We all puked. After some sobbing and shouts of Jesus, we run from the scene and get to a clearing. We're all hysterical. Then, Rich Friend looks nearly apocalyptical. I ask him what's wrong, apart from the obvious. He then says, "If that was Nerd Friend, then who's back at camp?" Oh shit. We all freaked the fuck out. Nerd Friend was our primary spirit expert in shit, and he's not around anymore. As we begin to shout at each other, Black Friend, in the middle of one of his rants, just stops. Just as we're about to ask him what's wrong, he points directly ahead. It's Nerd Friend. Or rather, what looks like Nerd Friend. It isn't smiling anymore. Rich Friend pulls out his empty gun and points it. The thing then puts on this completely inhuman smile, like ear to ear, face-ripping smile, and begins to make grunting noises. I didn't recognize them then, but those were the same noises we heard when we first left our camp. We're all shaking, and then, when Black Friend shouts, "Run!" we don't hesitate. As we run, we make sure to stick together. I could honestly feel the thing behind us. It was chasing us. We could barely see, and when Black Friend tripped, me and Rich Friend slowed down to help him up. But in the meantime, the thing was right above us. It had literally jumped 5 feet in the air, and in one motion, hit me right in the chest. I later found out that one blow nearly crushed my rib cage, broke 4 ribs, and nearly killed me. I don't know how far I was flung, but I blacked out after that. In the end, I woke up, battered and bruised, in the arms of the guy that we met. The only thing I remember before passing out again was the guy whispering chants and chanting, while all I remember was his face and a bright light. I woke up in the hospital in Prague. The officers had found my body, on the verge of death, and on the edge of the forest. No one else was found. We went in the forest on July 5th, and they found me on September 18th. We only spent 3 days in the forest. Be me, at age 19. Me and a few friends, my cousin Steve and my buddies Andrew and Greg, decided to travel for the summer. I made a bunch of money in stocks and shit overnight, a month before, so I'm kinda willing to dish out money for traveling. We decided to go to Chernobyl. Stupidest mistakes of our lives. It was a fucking nightmare getting there. Ukraine is a shithole, for those here who don't already know. Basically, we got there and got in, and it was pretty much just empty ruins and shit. We brought shotguns, and I brought a .44, so we wouldn't get raped or robbed. 3 nights in, freaky shit starts happening. Greg swears on his life that he starts seeing someone in an apartment window, and he gets really sleeved out. Greg's bigger than all of us, but he can also be a massive pussy sometimes. I tell him that if anyone fucks with us out here, no one will ever find their body. We all convince him and each other that it was nothing. The next day, we go walking around some parks and buildings. Everything's rusted. There's a headless doll left in the middle of the road. The buildings are really sketchy and unsafe, but we go in them anyway. Me, Andrew, and Steve are all white nationalists, so we start commenting on this communist mural painted in the hall. Greg's a wizard and he doesn't care about the conversation and starts upstairs. He's up there for like 20 seconds before he jumps down from the top and breaks it out the door going, holy shit, run, fuck! We all bolt out of the building after him, shouting for him to tell us what the fuck he's on about. He's outside holding his gun towards the door. We all run to him, and he's clearly not fucking around by the look on him. I'm just silent as Andrew and Steve start asking him why he just did that. I draw my gun and watch around us, constantly looking at the door. Greg starts saying in the most serious voice I've ever heard from him that he saw a man up there with an iron rod. I immediately suggest that we go in and confront him. Greg's like, "No, dude, he wasn't human. It's fucked up." Andrew agrees with me, and we get Steve to come. Greg doesn't want to be alone, so he has to come. Greg and Steve stay downstairs, while me and Andrew go up. Everyone knows how to check their targets, but I'm really worried Greg will shoot one of us, so I tell him to be careful what he shoots before we go up. He's not in good shape, and he's a pussy, but not this much of a pussy, so I realize that he's pretty serious. We go through the rooms upstairs, checking corners and shit. Eventually, we find a dead wolf. The stench is fucking horrid. It's clearly rotten. The thing's been mutilated, and its head has been pulled out of its neck. There's blood everywhere, and it's clear that this animal was being eaten, which is fucking odd, because it's pussed up and rotten. I start getting all weak, which happens when I think about anatomy. The wall in this room has collapsed, and someone could easily climb the rubble down to the street. So we know that if anything was up here, it's gone. We go downstairs and tell Steve and Greg what we found. After everyone goes back up to look at the wolf, we head outside and look for shelter. We wander around, alert as shit, looking for somewhere to spend the night. Eventually, we see this garage thing with a usable windowless door. It's totally empty, except for a shitty old chair. We set up our shit for the night and start planning what to do. We set up a 2-man watch team and go to bed while there's still light. Me and Andrew are on watch, and we start talking about random shit. Suddenly, I have to shit. We've been eating baked beans and jerky the whole week, so I know I can't shit inside or it'll stink up the place. Me and Andrew go outside, and I shit next to the door while he stands watch. I'm about finished when he calmly tells me to hurry the fuck up before it comes over here. I say, "Dude, what the fuck? Don't be an asshole right now." And he goes, "There's a guy standing out there watching us. I'm not fucking around." I finish up and look, and sure enough, there's a guy out there. But there's also a second guy standing too. We go in and keep on watching. Eventually, our watch is up, so we wake up the others and tell them about how 2 demons watched me shit outside. I go to bed wondering how I'll wake up. In the morning, we eat our food and check the guns and equipment. Geiger counters and a bong. We go out the garage door rather than the side door. Greg and Steve tells us that after we went to sleep, there was a scuffling noise near the side door. So we go around to check. My shit is gone. I'm revolted as fuck, so is everyone else. We head back up the road, planning to get the fuck out of Chernobyl. It's walking behind us in the woods. It has no shirt, but weird messed up pants. If we had a rifle, I would have gunned it down right there. We just keep walking, checking on it every now and then. It gets closer every 45 minutes or so, and we're getting tired. Every time we break for a rest, it just stands there watching. As it starts getting late, we look for shelter again. This time, we find an old building that kind of resembled a gas station. We go in, lock up the door, and use the same watch system as the night before. This building has windows though, and we can see them standing outside watching, closer than they stood to the garage last night. In the morning, we head out, and they're gone again. An hour into our trek, we catch sight of our follower. It's not walking though. About a mile behind us, it starts a squaddle sprinting towards where we were, jerking around and letting out this faint wail. We stand and wait, guns ready. During the time it takes for the demon to close the distance, we all conclude that this is some kind of trap, or that the creatures are just testing us. We decide to advance towards the thing. We walked forward in a horizontal line, guns forward, ready to fuck this thing up. I never thought it would actually come within range. I figured it would either off to the side or stop at some point. But when it gave us the chance, I didn't hesitate a moment. We fired in unison, and let me tell you, it was past overkill. The creature lost an entire arm, and its chest was a mangled mess. Before we fired, me, Steve, and Andrew all screamed "Hail Victory" which seems a little gay now, but at the time, I felt like the biggest badass that this world has ever seen. After we finished it, we just stood there looking at its corpse. Its skin was pale, with a yellow-green tinge, and its insides were black and reeked of rot. We stood there looking, and Greg just says, "That was fucking intense." I start laughing and I'm like, "Yeah," and we all turn around to start walking again. But we stopped dead. Everywhere in front of us, and as far as I could see down the road, they stood there watching. It was like time froze. We started running away backwards, but they just kept standing there, watching. After we ran so far that we couldn't see them anymore, we slowed down and started freaking out because now we couldn't take the road out. They had reaped us. We argued for a while until Steve said he heard a car. There was nowhere to hide, so we just stood next to the road, guns hidden, and we waited. The car turned out to be a Ukrainian law enforcement that had heard the shots and were coming to investigate. Apparently, we had been just a short while away from the last checkpoint into Chernobyl. One of the officers looked dead into my eyes and says in Russian, "Any trouble?" I can tell that he knew we were in trouble, and I could tell that he knew exactly what kind of trouble. We asked them for a ride back, and they kindly obliged. As we passed a spot where we shot the creature, there was no sign of any body, or even black blood. It's worth mentioning that these officers are strapped with AKs, and even grenades. I'm like quietly shitting myself because I realized that if these guys hadn't picked us up, we wouldn't have made it. They drove us all the way back to the first checkpoint, not stopping once. When they dropped us off, the same officer from before looked at me with that same look as before and said, "They never used to kill, you know." He says, "They used to be scared." Then he and his buddy just drive off. It's not really a nope, but it freaked me the hell out. That was 3 years ago, and if those things ever got bold enough, I wouldn't be surprised if we heard about something like riots in Ukraine in a decade or two. Seriously though, don't go to Chernobyl.